Hi guys, it's Max from Fill the Gap Education here, and today I'm going to be doing a video focusing on the psychology of money and actually our attitudes towards it, because all of these recommendations and every advice that I give requires certain actions and behaviour change, and you can't talk about behaviour change without talking about psychology. So the two topics I'm going to cover today are self-discipline and habit forming. Two really important topics when it comes to becoming comfortable and confident when it comes to our finances, which is what we're all about here at Fill the Gap. Because the fact is, those four pillars of financial education, the more technical side of things, spending, borrowing, investing, and income, they're great in theory, but actually we're all human creatures and we all have impulses and we all have very irrational moments. We are definitely not rational creatures. And there are times where even if you know these things, and even after watching these videos, you know them and go away, there's still no behavior change. Because actually one of the most common fallacies amongst humans is the information action fallacy, which is the idea where you think that just learning something, so for example, like reading a book or watching a YouTube video, is enough to actually change your behavior, but it's not. The only thing that you actually need to change your behavior is proof. So your brain has to have proof that this works. So you actually have to do something first in order to get that change. The information alone isn't enough. And so none of this advice that I give you is actually, you're never going to be able to convince yourself of it and your subconscious of this being something that you should do more of in future, unless you actually do something about it, unless you actually get that action. So an important topic and something that we have to sort of dig into a bit deeper is, how do we change that behavior? How do we change that behavior? And the two areas in which I think you can address that are self-discipline and habits. So the first of those is self-discipline. And to illustrate this, I want to tell you a story about a friend at uni. So I had this friend at uni who, to be honest, was complete salt of the earth, one of the best people I knew, but he really struggled with motivation. The only few times I saw him really were in the pub. Other than that, he was like sleeping in late, eating bad food, had no real healthy habits. And I remember one summer, we were all keeping an eye on him because we were a bit worried. But one summer he came back to uni and was completely changed. He was, getting up early, going on runs. He was hitting the library earlier. He seemed so healthy, so happy, and his behavior had completely changed. And I was so fascinated by this because I wanted to ask him, how did this happen? Well, the truth is, he'd always known what was good for him. He knew that sitting in bed until 1 p.m. watching box sets and not doing any work and eating bad food, he knew all those things were bad for him. But he could never quite bring himself to change his behavior. And that's because, unfortunately, we are very habitual creatures and we get stuck into ruts. And this is what had happened. Even though he knew it was wrong, he'd fallen for the information action fallacy. And so what happened? Well, he actually went to see an expert, and don't worry, I got the info and I got the down low. And basically, the one most important thing that he said, and the one mental model, which if you've watched my other videos, you'll know about, from Charlie Munger. The one mental model that changed his life the most was that in every moment and every day, he asked himself, am I prioritizing the long term over the short term? Am I prioritizing my wants now for the wants of the future me? Because if I am, then I'm probably making a bad choice. And that's such a powerful mental model. I love that. Basically, every decision you make, think about it. Is this prioritizing future you or present you? And because if it's prioritizing the present you, then it's probably just satisfying your sort of basic desires of eating fatty food or lazing or whatever it might be. But if you think about long-term you, then you need to do actions in the current moment which are healthy, which help your diet, which help your routines, whatever it might be. But when you have that mental model in your head of, am I prioritizing the long term? Does this activity prioritize my long-term wants and needs? Then you begin to actually do things a little bit differently. But it's very important that you do things that suit to you. If you're not a morning person, you don't like getting up early, then don't force it. Don't set your alarm at 5 a.m. because you think that's the right thing to do. That might not be best for you. You might be most efficient in the evenings. The key is that you keep in your head the mental model of, I'm prioritizing the long term over the short term. But if something doesn't feel right and it's not good for you and it's not working for you, then you don't have to stick to it. Know yourself.
That's the key. Know yourself. If you know that you like doing things early in the morning, then great, you can set your alarm early. But if not, then don't do that. Maybe you want to stack your habits in the evening, or maybe you want to, be disciplined with this stuff only 3 or 4 times a week because you know that that's how you work. The key is know yourself. Don't force it if it's not working for you. There is absolutely no hard and fast rule here. You have to find something that works for you. So do some things, try some things out, see what works best, and iterate and go from there.
And that takes me on to the second topic. So you've got self-discipline, which I think the best way to build self-discipline is to prioritize your long-term over your short-term. But another way to build self-discipline is it's all about habits. We are such habitual creatures. Our habits are, whether they're good or bad, they stick. And unfortunately, a lot of them are bad habits because a lot of us prioritize the short term over the long term rather than the other way round. And so we have a lot of these bad habits that are here right now. But that doesn't have to be the case. And there are 3 ways that you can build habits better. The 3 ways are: 1, change your environment. There's a brilliant story about US war veterans who were out in Vietnam, and they came back from Vietnam, and a lot of them, when they were out there, used methadone and heroin to get over the pain of what they were seeing in battle. Awful. And everyone in the US, all the psychologists and sociologists, were thinking, we're going to have an absolute methadone epidemic on our hands. It's going to be awful. But actually, the majority of veterans that came back didn't continue to use heroin. And they were thinking, wow, this is incredible. The most addictive drug ever. We can't get anyone in America basically to get off it. And all these veterans who come back all of a sudden just give it up. And basically what we found, and what behavioural psychologists have found, is that their environment is what was shaping their behaviour. So when they were out in Vietnam, everyone around them was doing heroin. There were some awful things that they were seeing, and it was so easy to get. And so the habit was easy, attractive, obvious, all these things. And so they did it. But when they came home, they were surrounded by family, and they weren't living in necessarily like bad situations. And so their motivation to behave like that was completely gone. And so the usage of heroin fell off a cliff. Crazy, right? So if you're thinking about a behavior that you want to build, whether it be saving money or getting up early, think about your environment. Think about your friends, think about your family. Even the apps on your phone, when you go onto your phone, what apps have you got there? Is it ones that are going to encourage good behaviors or bad behaviors? Is your environment built to prioritize the long term over the short term? Because if it's not, chances are you're not going to be able to do that. So building your environment and shaping it to be the person you want to be is really, really key. The second golden rule when it comes to building habits is to stack your habits. Stacking habits is so important. And to be honest, with the blow up of Atomic Habits, which is a brilliant book, by the way, you probably know all this anyway. But stacking habits is basically just saying, when I do habit X, which I already do, I will do habit Y. So for example, in the morning is a time where people stack habits quite a lot. So for me personally, I always used to brush my teeth and have a shower. There are 2 habits that I did every single day, which were a great opportunity to stack habits on. So now you stack a little like ab workout on. So you say, when I have a shower and brush my teeth, I will also do an ab workout. Or when I have a shower and brush my teeth, I will put aside £50 into my savings account, or whatever it might be. Or when the money comes into my bank account every month, I will put money into a savings. Whatever it might be, when you're out and about, you can stack these habits quite nicely. And it doesn't have to even just fill into, it doesn't even have to just refer to finances. Every area of your life, if you want to build a good habit stacking is really, really important and a key factor. And the third and final thing when it comes to habits, in just a short sort of wrap up, is to monitor them. So I have my own habit tracking sheet where I use pen and paper, and I do it on a little line graph and stuff like that, which helps me because it keeps me accountable, and it also makes me feel good because I've looked back at the habits that I've done and think, yeah, I've actually had a good week this week. I've done all the things that I wanted to do. And so you're rewarding that behavior, and the behaviors that get rewarded get repeated. And so therefore it can begin to compound over time. For a habit to stick, you probably need to do it consecutively every single day for about 30 days, if not longer, to be honest. So it's getting over that first 30 days of prioritizing the long term over the short term, getting into that mental habit as well, which will then hopefully build those long-term habits. Because like I've said before, time is a great compounder. Even if you're talking about money in the stock market and investment, or if you're talking about the behaviors that you're doing every day. If you put good inputs into time, then you're going to get great outputs. But if you put in bad ones, then over time you're going to start nosediving and you're not going to feel good. There's a brilliant, brilliant quote which I hold in my head all the time, which is one that is called "Feelings follow behavior." I just think that's fantastic, because basically what it's saying is, if you feel bad, you don't need to worry, you don't need to panic about it. The chances are you just probably haven't acted in maybe a great way recently. Maybe you haven't been exercising much, or maybe you've not been as patient as you could be, or as kind. And so just remember and just think, actually, no, if I want to feel good in future, I just need to act in a good way. Remember that your feelings follow your behaviour, and that's such a powerful thought. Anyway, if you really want to stick to building out this financial stuff in the long term, it doesn't actually require that much, to be perfectly honest. In terms of a habit, it's about putting that direct deposit in every month and making sure you're not taking it out. But I think habits and self-discipline are so important in a wide aspect that it's worth mentioning here. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I've been Max from Fill the Gap Education. Please like, please comment, please subscribe and share on any other social media. I love interacting with people. I love hearing what you have to say. Let me know what videos you want to see, what you liked about this one, and let's keep in touch. Cheers.